Department of Children, Youth, and Families already needs a complete overhaul and investigation. They have been responsible for the sad state of our juvenile detention facilities, which has to do with, I think, a from above, from the governor's office and everyone in his administration, this soft on crime approach and soft on criminals approach. And that soft on criminals approach has now led to the death of a child. And I firmly believe that. Let's talk about it in our segment, Unbelievable. A child that was kidnapped by his father in Port Townsend was found dead in a bush. This is a heartbreaking story, and Nicole and I have read the probable cause affidavit in this, and there's a lot of details that, you know what, I just don't feel like we need to share. It's sad. A child is dead. They're still trying to determine cause of death. So the father hasn't been charged with murder yet, but has gone to court. And right now the charges are going to be kidnapping, et cetera. But if they find that the child was actually killed by the father, then those charges would be enhanced. But this was a story that was broke by our friend David Rose over at Fox 13. Here's a Fox 13 report.
Some breaking news out of Port Townsend, where an infant is dead after police say his father kidnapped him.
The baby's father was taken into custody around 10 this morning. Police say he initially resisted arrest, but they were eventually led to the baby in Katai Park. Police started their search for the two last night. This is the baby's father, 37-year-old Jordan Sorensen. Police say the weeks-old infant was in danger because Sorensen couldn't provide basic care for him. Sorensen remains behind bars tonight.
Yeah, fentanyl addict doesn't make the best caretaker. Not a shock. I mean, anyone with a brain knows that. And I believe actually this child, which was only a couple weeks old, had already tested positive for fentanyl intoxication. So that's someone who never should have had, until they were able to get their you-know-what together, they never should have had access to that child. Our friend David Rose, though, tweeted out some more context from his law enforcement sources and from following this case. He says, police say Sorensen hid the body of his 3-week-old baby in a bush. The Department of Children, Youth, and Families gave the infant to him after the state determined that this convicted felon and well-known drug user with no stable home was the safest option to be the sole care provider. David went on to say, Sorensen stopped cooperating with DCYF as required, so an alert was issued for his arrest for kidnapping because of concerns for the child's safety. Oh, so the Department of Children, Youth, and Families only had concerns for the child's safety after Sorensen, a known drug user felon who's essentially homeless, wasn't cooperating with the conditions they put forth for him to have access, sole custody of his 3-week-old child. Shock of the century. For the love of God, it wasn't enough that he is in active addiction and has no real place to stay for the state to determine that there's cause to be concerned for the child's safety. It wasn't until a drug user, a felon, stopped responding to, they wanted him to take drug tests, wasn't showing up, wasn't responding. Again, shock of the century. So now you're going to put out an alert and say, okay, this kid's been kidnapped by his dad that we gave to him. This 3-week-old has been kidnapped by the father who we allowed to have sole custody despite a laundry list of reasons why that never should have been the case. So they put out a bulletin, the child is found dead in a bush. 3 weeks old. Who did the state of Washington show more care and concern for? The drug abuser father or a 3-week-old baby who couldn't fend for itself, who couldn't take care of itself? Shameful. And it's not just the fault of the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. After all, a lot of what they do is dictated by state law. And a couple years ago, there began a conversation in 2022 about trying to, in the words of Democrats who were pushing for this, keep families together. Keep families together apparently at any cost. The result of those conversations was House Bill 1227. And it went into effect on July 1st of 2023. It was passed in the legislature and then went into effect July 1st of 2023. This is from the Department of Children, Youth, and Families website, and it has some information about House Bill 1227. Nicole, can you put this up for me? It says in 2022, the Washington State Legislature passed House Bill 1227, known as the Keeping Families Together Act. The act made several changes to RCW, the Juvenile Court Act, regarding child dependency cases. The intent of the act was to safely reduce the number of children placed into foster care, reduce racial disproportionality in the child welfare system, and support relatives to take care of children when they must be placed out of the home to protect their safety. In early 2022, the Department of Children, Youth, and Families convened stakeholder work groups to recommend strategies for DCYF and the child welfare system partners to meet the requirements and intent of this legislation. So they put down, how this was going to work and how they were going to carry this out. It says, what does HB 1227 change? So what did it actually change when it came to whether a drug-addicted felon father who's homeless can keep an infant child? House Bill 1227, according to DCYF, increased the standard for police and hospitals to take a child into protective custody through a law enforcement hold, increased the standard for a court to issue a pickup order directing DCYF or law enforcement to take a child into protective custody, increased the standard for the court to order that a child can be removed from the home at a shelter care hearing to imminent risk of physical harm. So that is the standard. That's the big change in House Bill 1227. That you'd have to prove imminent risk of physical harm to take a child out of a home. The evidence must show a causal relationship between conditions in the home and the threat of harm. And it requires the court to weigh the harm of removal as well. So balancing the harm of removing an infant child from the care of their drug-addicted felon homeless father versus the imminent harm. And I would argue that the second that child had tested positive for fentanyl, that is an imminent harm. How is that not an imminent harm? Fentanyl kills full-blown adults. Oh, that's right. If I believe the state of Washington and King County, fentanyl's not dangerous. We can sit on buses that are filled with fentanyl smoke. That's not dangerous to us. Keep on riding. So I guess why would fentanyl be dangerous to a 3-week-old child? So because of activist lawmakers who want a soft-on-criminal approach and who look at everything through the lens of equity. Oh, we have more children being taken away from people of color, so we need to make it more difficult. That's really what this does. Increase the standard to take a child out of a clearly dangerous situation, all in the name of equity, all in the name of social justice. Well, your social justice killed a kid. Your social justice robbed a 3-week-old child of their life. That's the consequence of your social justice, of your equity obsession. It's a child's life. I hope it's worth it to you. I truly hope it's worth it to you. The cause, the harm that you are doing to this wonderful state of ours. The harm that you are doing to innocent people, young and old, who are just trying to live their freaking lives. The harm you're doing to a 3-week-old kid who had no one to look out for their best interest because you're so damn focused on equity. Shame on you. Shame on you.